Hello, world. My next guest needs no introduction. He's taking the marketing world by storm, and he's on a mission to increase IFS visibility in order to attract and retain a loyal following and customer base. And all I can say is it's absolutely working. I can no longer see the color purple without thinking of this brand. So please join me in welcoming Oliver Pilgerstorfer, CMO of IFS, to the show. Oliver, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
I don't know. Let's find out. But what an intro! Thank you so much. I don't know if I need to pay you money for that for that intro, but that was very kind of you. Thank you, Jen.
Absolutely. And, I'm just going to call it out for what it is. Thank you for being such a good sport. I probably, with your last name, you want to just share how you properly pronounce that, because I think I didn't do it justice.
No, you did well. Oliver
Yeah.
Pilgerstorfer. That'll do.
Amazing. Oliver, thank you so much. So listen, I always like to kick off the show with a question that I call an easy, radically transparent curveball one, right? Because you know your career best, but I always think it's fascinating to understand how a CMO got to where they are today. So could you give us a super brief look at how you actually found yourself in the chair of CMO?
I started my career working actually in Germany for what I thought was going to be Hewlett-Packard, but Hewlett-Packard just split their company into two, and I worked for a division called Quadrant Technologies, which was 50,000 people large. And as part of that, my career started in marketing. It was an internship, and then when I came back to London to start my career full on, I went to go and work for actually a partner of theirs, a comms company, an agency, started up, very small business spun out of Weber Shandwick, that was just 10 people large when I joined it, and we grew that business to over 120 when I left. Our biggest client at the time was a company called RIM, Research in Motion, and I was the account manager for that company, which most people remember as BlackBerry, and I jumped ship to work for BlackBerry for a number of years after that, where I did stints in Europe and then also in Asia as well, which was great fun. But that really took my career out of just being pure comms into more of a broader marketing role. I was responsible for BBM. You might remember the messaging tool that people used to use across the world, which was great fun. But with the ups and downs of BlackBerry, which there were many of both, and I enjoyed both sides of it actually. I realised that change was afoot for me, and so I joined IFS after BlackBerry, initially in a comms and strategic marketing role, and then from there I got promoted up into where I am now as the CMO.
So I've got to ask, did you bring your BlackBerry with you?
No, sad news earlier this year is they switched off the service for all BlackBerries. So I became an iPhone user after I left BlackBerry.
There we go. So listen, I want to know, because purple is everywhere, and we're going to get into that later on in the show, but what value does IFS bring to your customers in an elevator pitch, or quick kind of one line?
I mean, the basic premise of what our software does is historically we have helped companies who are either building or maintaining really expensive things like an airline fleet, an oil rig, a manufacturing plant, use our software to be more efficient, to differentiate, and then ultimately grow their own businesses. And as part of that, we did a lot of navel gazing to try and understand what makes us special versus some of our peers like ServiceNow, Salesforce, and the big behemoths of the industry. And we realized there was one thing that really made us stood apart, and that was our ability to help organizations deliver when it matters the most, which we coined as this term, the moment of service. And it really speaks to the complexity that all of the customers that we work with have to deal with on a daily basis, all of the choices they have to make in order that they can then go and manage their customers, their people, and then their assets in an effective way. And so, we kind of have symbolized this under this notion of moment of service. But really, we believe that is the piece that helps our customers do things differently with our software.
I love it. With IFS, you do things differently. So listen, I want to ask a bit, I mentioned a few times now the color purple. I'm not talking about the Broadway play or the book. And I want to get into this because, it's really interesting in terms of what you are doing with being basically kind of, branding and getting the IFS name out there. But before we do, I do want to ask, like, what is actually keeping you up at night professionally? I'll throw in there as CMO.
That's a good question. I mean, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been growing at such a phenomenal rate. And it's one thing if you grow quickly when you're a small business, but we're $1 billion revenue business now. We've nearly 5,000 employees, and we're growing, year on year around, software revenue wise, 25%. So it's really quite substantial. And keeping pace with that growth is a challenge, right? What keeps me awake at night is thinking, is everything that we've got today, is that going to scale for tomorrow? So, that's the processes, that's the systems that we've got, the campaigns that we run. You can't keep doing the same thing, year on year, growing at that scale. You have to sometimes take a step back and think about that. So I think the thing that makes me, or keeps me up at night, is understanding all of the different elements of our marketing puzzle. What is it that we need to to relook at from that macro level, and then drill back into. And sometimes the result or the answer is, keep doing what you're doing, scale and expand. Other times we have to go back and redraw out what we do and how we do it. Coming with that is a whole heap of other things. Hiring at the moment is nuts. Again, we're trying to scale at that level, and growing at that volume, we need the right talent, and finding the right people with the right culture in a very buoyant market is tough, and we're quite selective on who we want to bring in. So that's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I definitely can imagine that piece. If I was just thinking out loud for a moment, I don't think you're alone as a leader in that fear. If I told you we had a room full of leaders right behind me listening, which, we're listening to the podcast, but what would be one piece of advice that you would give to someone with that fear to make it to the next day, or to just, come in and do what you got to do? What's the one piece of advice keeping you going?
I think it would be, make sure you've got clarity on your goal, because as soon as you've got that, then normally the answers spill out. And for us at IFS, it's, I talked a bit around that growth, and I translate that into, I've kind of got two goals, right? I've got the goal to make sure that we're delivering day in, day out, a healthy pipeline of opportunities for our sales guys to go and capitalize on, so that we then grow as a business. But then equally, on the other side, there's a piece of me that really wants to make sure that our brand delivers on what we promise. And that's obviously, there's a piece around awareness, but then there's all the other parts of that to make sure that we're delivering customer satisfaction, that we're helping retain our customers, and all that good stuff as well. So I think the clarity of goals would probably be my answer, so that you can then go and define what the answers are.
I like that. Listen, I have a bone to pick with you, Oliver, because I've done a lot of research. LinkedIn's one of my friends, if you will, where I go to get that research, but it has come to my attention that IFS is not yet a household name. So I want to know what you are doing effectively right now to ensure that IFS most certainly becomes a household name, because I can say what I'm seeing on social, you guys should, be immediately a household name.
Well, good that you're picking up what the team are doing on social, because it's great to observe. I'm really proud of them, and I think they're doing a fabulous job. And of course, there are many miles still to walk. But I guess really to answer your question, my broader view on this is to look at how companies dominate in general. And I think a little bit like, a good example of this actually might be Walmart. So, Walmart obviously started up as just a small shop to start off with, but the way they came to dominance was to look at different pockets of where they would become really dominant and then expand out of there. And they decided that was regionally. So, rather than saying that we're going to be the biggest shop in the whole of the US, they decided to pick a few locations and then grow out of that, and then connect the dots between them for distribution. So they drove efficiencies and then scaled a bit broader, and then it became the household brand that we all know it today. Similarly, our perspective on this from a brand positioning and also actually like a general growth area is to play to our strengths, and our strengths are in industries that we focus on. So we don't sell software for every industry out there, but we focus on a set number of industries, predominantly which are asset intensive.
Okay.
But my view is that if we can dominate in those industries, then once you dominate there, you'll naturally expand into adjacent industries and become the brand that is, in your terminology, a household brand. Which, selling in the B2B sphere, I want to make sure that every dollar that we are spending is very targeted on the people that actually make sense for us to market to. But it drives the ambition that I think you're asking from that question, which is to become better known and more of a well-known business.
Absolutely. And we're working on it. So listen, I want to ask you if you can talk a little bit about Team Purple or the purple momentum, because
yeah,
the wave of purple, I mean, I'm speaking from experience of looking through my feed. There are constant stop the feed moments coming from your brand. They are all purple, but whether they're talking about, what it's like to work on the team or with the team, or the extraordinary things that the organization is doing as a whole, this Team Purple momentum, it's really catching wave. Can you talk us through it a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, my only observations of using social is, you get a lot of people barking out to you, and especially brands that, they just decide they want to go and bark something out because it's what their business does, and they want to go and use a platform to shout about. And speaking with the team we've got, and I know that Jen, you spend a good amount of time with Helen and Alex and the broader team that we work with. They're a fabulous group. That they had a great observation that we're now living by, and that's, there's an opportunity to differentiate with the people that you've got to champion an authentic story. And they take a genuine approach to put advocacy at the heart and center of everything that we do on social. So, we would rather lead with a story from the relevant person behind that piece of news or that update or whatever it is, rather than the IFS handle make that announcement. And the premise behind it is the numbers speak for themselves. We get better engagement. People hear a more authentic story. It's more enjoyable to read from a message pull through perspective, and it just kind of makes sense. And we've looked at that from how we want to scale. And of course, being an Oktopost user, it's a great platform for us in order to get messaging out to people so that they can put their own touch on it and put their own point of view against a certain narrative, but it's really, really helpful for us to get visibility en masse through a channel which is very important to us, so that we can tell a very authentic story in a personal way.
It's working. I mean, I feel like do you have an internal name for IFSers? Like, do you call yourself?
Well, we
something?
call ourselves Team Purple is what we refer to, but
okay.
yeah.
So every time I see a post, even from one of your colleagues that I haven't spoken to yet, or I don't know, I feel like I know them, and I love it because it's making me feel extremely connected to IFS.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice thing, because what we try to do is pull everybody to march to the same beat, but in their own different swim lanes. And there you start actually, you kind of get this idea of the butterfly effect, right? So when lots of people are doing small things, then it actually multiplies into something that's really quite meaningful. And we see that when somebody's telling a career story, or whether we're trying to advertise for some openings, or whether there's a great case study of a customer, or a showcase of one of our partners doing something fabulous. If you start getting that momentum build through all of these different swim lanes, then really actually can be quite meaningful. And I think, Jen, that's what you're making reference to. So it's great for us to hear that validation from you.
Absolutely. So everyone listening right now, I want you to open LinkedIn, search the hashtag Team Purple, and you'll see exactly what we're speaking about. If you're looking for inspiration for your advocacy program, or how to tell a meaningful story, because I'm telling you, this team is doing something right. What I want to jump to, because I think this is like another topic that whenever I get a CMO on the show, I'm like, oh yes, I'm going to certainly ask about this. Right. At the end of the day, we're all data-driven marketers, right? Like wink, wink, we're all data-driven. I mean, that is like the buzzword. You apply for a job, you make sure you're data-driven. But how are you actually guaranteeing that what you're looking at is the accurate data you need to make your decisions as CMO?
You ask a lot of questions, Jen. That's not you, but well, you ask a lot of questions too. But the answer is you've got to ask a lot of questions. And I think are we where I want to be? There are continual improvements that we'll want to make in terms of our data sophistication. But I think as long as you can keep asking the right questions to the team so that we dig a little deeper every time and we understand more around behaviors and start then using that to inform decisions, then you feel like you're making change, and that's the important piece. And my observations when it comes to this, it's a topic that's very meaningful and true, and close to my heart. If you put too much effort on just getting the data there and you've got a beautiful dashboard but do nothing with it, then you're going to have a disillusioned group of people around you who think, well, I'm creating all of this material, but then there are no decisions that are being made around it. And I think that you've got to get an equal weighting in the culture that you instill in the business to make sure that the data that you're harnessing is actually getting used to change and inform a decision moving forward. So I ask all of the leaders within the marketing organization to set out what the parameters are in their area. Once we've got, again, clarity on what those are going to be, then we know what data we need so that we can then make decisions in certain ways. And on a regular basis, we clearly go through reviews of that to ensure that we're performing in the way that we want to, and then ask the questions, some of which are many difficult questions. And when you ask difficult questions around data, then you can either eke out whether it's accurate or not accurate. And if it is accurate and telling the story you don't want to see, then you can make decisions around that. So that's really our approach.
I like it. In data we trust. So I'm going to jump right. There you go. Anyway, so yes. I'm going to call out the elephant in the room for a moment, because I think that this is something many of us are wondering, thinking about, but right, Gartner's Magic Quadrant. I think it's right. Like we can all breathe like a sigh of like relief, but at the same time, right? Like, how are you setting IFS up for success to be named into it? And let's get radically transparent about it, because I think many of us, that's like our end goal, or how do we do that?
I don't know that I overly like that. Well, I get the question, and I know that it's something that's on a lot of marketing people's minds, but actually it's definitely the wrong way to think about approaching the fundamentals. If you're driving value for your customers, then you're going to be recognized through the market, and probably more important to me is that our customers are happier than we get in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. But the two things are connected clearly. I think what would I say to that? The investments we make as a business clearly need to be against the things that our prospect and customer base feel are important. Investment in our product, assurance in how we actually go and deliver that product so that they get value quickly. And we see that being a really important thing that, again, differentiates us from some of our peers, that fast time to value. And I think when you start putting the fundamentals in place as a business, it makes the marketeer's job a lot easier. And I don't want to belittle the great work that my analyst relations team does here, but fundamentally, if we haven't got the right ingredients, we're going to get the bad result. So the team makes a lot of effort in ensuring that we obviously put our best foot forward and showcase the innovations that have come out of the investment in our product, that they then ensure that we put the right customers in front that showcase the benefits that we're able to derive from, or they're able to derive from using our technology, and consequently that normally helps the analysts understand where we are at comparative to our peers. So those really, I hate to say it's a bit of an open question, but again, you can't bake a beautiful cake if you've got the wrong ingredients, and I think that you've got to make sure that you've got the fundamentals right there.
And this is exactly why you were invited to be on this show, because you've just gotten radically transparent, right, about this topic and kind of reframing the question in a very accurate way. I think many of us do need to be thinking about is really, it is all about the customer. And if you're servicing your customer in the right way, right, then getting on Gartner's Magic Quadrant should be within arm's reach.
Yeah, and actually, that any company that's going out there to try and get into a Magic Quadrant is taking the wrong approach to life. And I think you should question your like why you go to work every day. Of course, like I don't mean that in belittling, just and I don't just think about Gartner. I think about all of the great analysts that are out there, the IDCs, the Foresters, the many hundreds of the other specialist analysts that are really important to us. But I think that they would respect us even more, knowing that we weren't trying to game any system.
Agreed. And I think well said. So listen, I've got two more questions for you. And one, I want to ask, the world that we are in today is constantly changing. I mean, I think faster than we all would like. And I think for many of us, since 2020, we're all hoping for the better. But I don't think anybody really knows where we're going. But in terms of being a marketing leader, if you would have known what you know today about where you are or the decisions you're making or would have made, would you have done anything differently a year ago to impact today?
That's a good question, Jen. What would I say? I would probably, I talked a little bit about hiring beforehand, and rather than giving you a vanilla response on that, a year ago we hired our first serious wave of interns into the business. We've done it a bit here and there before, but nothing on scale. And this is the first year that we've got a meaningful number of interns in our marketing organization across the whole spread of campaigns to brand to social to events to across the course. And I've been bowled over by the approach, the maturity, the viewpoints, the sense that they've brought. Actually, it's been a lot more invigorating to our team than I thought that this program was going to be. And it's great, actually. It's great from a short-term perspective that you can go and get the right resourcing to help your current projects. But equally, it's such a great way for us to think about our long-term hiring and our long-term growth as an organization. So a year ago, I wish we'd been a bit more ambitious, actually, in the number of interns that we've got, because it's going to come and play into our own cycle so that we can thrash out which interns we want to give those jobs to in the long term. And when you grow at such a rate, like, clearly you've got to balance the hiring so that you've got experience with with youth and early career starters. But that would be one area that I wish that we'd invested in more a year ago, because I can see it playing even more benefits in the years to come. And next year, we're certainly going to be having a larger intake of interns to help with that long-term growth that we anticipate.
Wow, that's an inspiring program, and thank you for sharing that with me. I couldn't agree more. And for anyone listening in, again, IFS is doing really incredible things, from social to the intern program that you're running. So my
Jen,
last,
if you're going to give us one plug, can I go a little bit one step further? It's ifs.com/careers for those people that are really interested, right?
So yes, absolutely. IFS.
We've got a shed load of roles.
So listen, I'll throw it out now. I usually ask this as the super last question, but if anybody is interested in learning more about the internship program, joining your social team, joining your team, or any other team that you think they'd be a great fit for, can you share that website again?
ifs.com/careers is where we talk about working at IFS and the roles that are available. Equally, look on LinkedIn. We've got like life at IFS pages as part of our profile. So there are many places people can go organically, just speak to their contacts in IFS, and I'm sure they would give you an honest and an open viewpoint. Equally, if people want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to take a phone call and point you in the right direction. So look, if there's any part of you that's interested, we'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. So that leads me to my last question, Oliver. You are not off the hook. It's my favorite one to ask our guests. What is one thing you can tell us about yourself that we cannot learn about you, Oliver, on LinkedIn?
Well, at the moment, I tell you what. So here's one thing that's not on my LinkedIn profile, probably for good reason. Well, one, I haven't got it yet, and secondly, I don't know if it'd be appropriate. So I'm studying at the moment for a day skipper license to get a license for sailing, so I can charter a boat independently. And I really like the idea of doing it for family reasons, for an interest for myself, but it opens up a lot of doors. So I don't know whether when I get the accolade that I even put it on LinkedIn, but that's something that I'm passionate about at the moment. And it's good to have a nice hobby outside of doing our day-to-day work.
Well, I hope when you get that license, you do post some Team Purple and maybe take your team out for a little sail.
That would be fun.
Where do you sail? Like where's the lake, ocean?
Normally somewhere a bit warmer than the UK if you can. But yeah, I'm doing some theoretic stuff at the moment, so it doesn't really matter where you do the theory. But yeah, I agree with you that it can be a touch cold if you go out in the English Channel on a bad day.
There you go. Well, we look forward and wish you much success in passing the certification, and we look forward to also having you as our skipper and fearless marketing leader. So thank you, Oliver.
Fabulous, Jen. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you loved today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.